Hi, everyone. This is Solomont. I am a reporter at The Real Deal. Welcome to our latest TRD Talks. I'm so excited to be here. We are talking about tech today. We're turning to tech to talk about some of the innovations that may lessen the difficulties during our quarantine, during our pandemic. I'm here with a few different people who are going to weigh in and talk to us about it. I'm going to go clockwise. So I've got right down there, I've got Viral Shah, who's a co-founder of Better.com. Then we've got John Fagan, CEO and co-founder of Doorkee, and Jared Kessler, CEO of EasyKnock. So thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, so all of your companies are in some way or another based on the idea that the residential real estate transaction is clunky or outdated or has like a fundamental creakiness to it. I don't know how to say it any other way. In 30 seconds or less, I want to give you each an opportunity to say, what exactly you're tackling, which pain point you're tackling. And I'm going to stick to the 30 seconds because I wanted to get into more meat and potatoes for our discussion. Viral, why don't we start with you?
Sure. And hey, everyone, and thanks very much for having us. 7 years ago, I had a very difficult mortgage experience when I was buying a home. And I was very surprised at how manual and difficult and convoluted the process was. So we started Better.com to basically bring technology to the mortgage process for the first time, allow consumers to do everything fully online, and in doing so, help them save money. So consumers today, when they come to Better.com, they can get pre-approved in minutes, lock in their rate in less than half an hour, and close in as quickly as 20 days. And because we've digitized large parts of the process, we pass on the savings to consumers. They typically save $3,000 to $4,000 on the transaction. So that's Better in a nutshell.
Okay, so 100% online process. John, what about you?
Well, let me just start by saying that 30 seconds, my team will tell you, is usually how long it takes for me to clear my throat. So definitely put me under the gun here. But similar to Raul, I had a terrible experience renting about 2.5 years ago. I knew I had to move out when my lease expired in December, and I knew in August, and I was like, okay, great. Like, let me get a head start. Let me find my apartment now. And it turns out you just can't do that. There's no platform to be able to find your apartment more than, call it 2-3 weeks in advance. And I was like, that's kind of silly. Surely there are people in my position where they know that they're moving in months. They want to find their next apartment. And then I had a really bad experience actually finding the apartment. It was a very expensive process. It was a very clunky process. It was a very manual process. And so I thought, why don't we just allow people who know they're moving out of their apartment to help facilitate the process for landlords and incoming tenants. And so out of Doorkee, we incentivize apartment seekers, departing tenants, and landlords to work together. And so departing tenants are giving much further notice that they're not renewing their lease. And then apartment seekers, turns out over 80% of apartment seekers want to find their next apartment more than 2 months out. And so apartment seekers, there's no fee. They're able to see the apartment totally virtual. They can connect with the departing tenant directly, ask questions about the apartment. The landlord's happy because there's no vacancy between tenants. They're able to lock theirs up before their current one moves out. And we're actually a lot cheaper than a lot of the other options out there. And the kick here is if a departing tenant gives notice early and gives access to the apartment seeker, if there is a pre-lease, then they get a partial rent refund from their landlord. So win-win-win.
You had me at incentives. Jared, tell me about your company. Tell me about EasyKnock.
Thank you. Home ownership has not been innovated in 50 years. You either own your home or you stay in your home. And what we've created at EasyKnock is a horizontal platform of two main products, movability and sell and stay, where we'll buy your house, you become a renter. You want to buy it back, you can buy it back the next day. You want to move, we give you all the appreciation while you live there. Movability, become a renter of your own home and use the money for your next move. We give all the benefits of selling without having to move. And we can close as quickly as 6 days. So we're really just changing the way the home is approached from a liquid asset and people's biggest asset in most cases to a more flexible experience.
Okay. So over the last few weeks, I think for everyone, our lives, our business lives, our personal lives have been totally upended. I'm curious to hear how this has impacted each of you from a business perspective, whether you've seen demand increase, or basically what's been happening, because all of you offer some kind of a digital experience. Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to start. We'll work backwards. When we designed our product, we knew that it was designed for a recession, and we never expected the COVID-19 situation. But the idea of giving people the benefit of selling without having to move, when open houses are shut down, buyers are shut down, people want to stay put, but also there's a tremendous need for small business owners, for people to get liquidity. There's not a product out there right now that we know that I think is better to help people right now. And not just the consumers, but also the real estate agents. If they can't sell houses of people that are moving, we've seen an amazing amount of demand and support from that community as well, and vice versa, to help them help their clients as well too, so everyone can win. So we're really excited because we're solving a financial and social need.
Sorry to interrupt you. So what does that mean in terms of an actual, have you noticed quantifiable demand for this at this point? I know it's still early, so is it too raw yet?
No, we've seen a surge in demand, less so from our direct-to-consumer channels and more so from our B2B channels of partnerships of people that are looking for new arrows in their quiver. So we've seen a significant amount of demand, significant.
Okay, and then just to clarify one thing, so when you're talking about from a B2B perspective, who would be the other B?
Real estate agents, lenders for their turndowns because they're experiencing a surge in refis and a lot of people they can't help, reverse mortgage lenders. So it's been across the board. Anyone that's in the space of either non-government backed lending or people that are selling homes, they're looking for new channels because either they've been shut down or they are looking for capacity.
We were speaking the other day, and you were talking to me a little bit about homeowners who need to get their liquidity, or who need to get liquidity out of their homes. So, do you think that's something you would see down the line when things are not quite as uncertain as they are now?
Yeah, there's always going to be people that are looking to stay in their home but want liquidity, and they want to move faster because traditional refinancing or HELOCs are either not available or they're uncertain or take longer. So there's always going to be a need. I think in the next 2 years, you're going to see more of a need than we've seen in my lifetime.
Got it. Viral, can I ask you a question? What's been your experience over the past few weeks?
Yeah, it's been similar. We designed Better.com to be fully digital, fully online, and available 24/7. So our workforce did go remote early March, but thankfully our consumers have not seen any difference in service levels or anything like that, which is surprising because we've seen about a 200% increase month over month in terms of customer demand just in the month of March. To give you an idea, we helped fund about $1 billion in loans in March. That's more than we did in all of 2017 and much of 2018. So in 1 month, we've seen a huge upsurge in demand. And if March is any indication, we'll see more of the same in April and May. Part of this, I think, is consumers are looking to lock in savings, via cash out refinance or via a product like EasyKnock. But we're also seeing that consumers are being underserved by more of the brick and mortar lenders. We're hearing reports of hold times of like 2 or 3 hours just to get somebody on the phone. Or we're seeing reports of, instead of the loan taking 45, 60 days, it could be 3 months. So we're still open for business and we're self-serve online. So I think we're addressing the demand that the brick and mortar shops are unable to.
How can you be sure? What gives you the confidence to say that it's because of that piece as opposed to someone's in the market, someone's, halfway through a transaction or is, and then all of a sudden Corona happens and they can't go to their bank and they want a digital process. And then I guess the second piece is then, do you think that $1 billion is something that you can sustain?
We do. I think we grew about 300% last year. And we were on track to grow about 200 to 300% this year as well. I think we achieved that growth a little faster than we expected these last few weeks. And you're right, there are some customers that are coming who are already down the pipe with somebody else, and they can no longer work with that lender. That happens all the time. And I think we're seeing increases of that, especially in this environment, because a lot of the brick and mortar shops are having trouble meeting demand.
Mm-hmm. So John, how have things been going for you? From what I'm understanding from you, there's incentives, lots of incentives, but there's a partnership with the tenant and the landlord and the prospective renter. So what does that mean in the age of coronavirus?
Yeah, so specifically in the age of coronavirus, we're seeing that, there was some confusion over the course of the last couple of days as to whether or not brokers were going to be able to do showings. And there's been clarity now that the virtual showings are only the only ones allowed, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had a number of landlords in our pipeline that were slated to launch here in April. And I'd say a little over 70% of them have actually come to us and said, hey, can we accelerate how quickly we're rolling this out? And the reason why is twofold. One is, once there's a vacancy, they're going to have a really difficult time moving that unit because they can't have someone come in and show it. It's very difficult to actually have someone come in and show the unit. No one's going to physically go to it. So they need to pre-lease the units, which Doorkee does an amazing job at. As a matter of fact, we've pre-leased 90% of our partner landlords' units that are market rate. And so we're able to solve this problem before it becomes a problem. The second part of it.
You're saying that you had, people who are, migrating to your platform who said, can we do this faster because we can't get agents in the apartment? Yeah,
that's right. So we had I'd say 70% of the landlords who had already agreed to sign up had said, let's speed this up, let's go faster. It's usually, when you're dealing with clients, it's usually like pulling them along. It's usually like pushing rope. And now they're knocking at our door saying how can we speed this up? Because we can't afford to get a vacancy. We need to close our units before we have one. The other side is that we have remote tools. And so we allow our departing tenants to do FaceTime tours with apartment seekers. We actually just uploaded a new feature that allows departing tenants or landlords to take a video walkthrough and post it up as well. As a matter of fact, I just said on one of the interviews that we had that capability. Turns out that wasn't in the pipeline for a few months, but our engineering team is so good that they cleaned up the mess and they had the feature ready to roll out. Shout out our stallions on the engineering team. So they cleaned up my mess.
Okay, wait, I have to ask you this. Are people really renting sight unseen? And then I guess, even if they are people able to move?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a great question. So sight unseen, we had actually already rented apartments sight unseen previous to this. We had a couple of cross-continent apartment rentals, as a matter of fact. We had someone from California, right? When you're moving here and you're moving into the apartment that you're moving to the day that you're flying in. And so we had people from California, from Seattle, lock up an apartment a couple months in advance and then move into that apartment. And also it's not quite like buying a home, right? When you're buying a home, that's the largest purchase that you're going to make in your life in all likelihood. When you're renting an apartment, considerably less expensive, considerably less of a commitment. And so, it's a lower risk. Also, if you go check out our video walkthroughs on Doorkee.com, the video walkthroughs are pretty darn good at showing what the apartment's like. And, worst case scenario, you only have a year lease. You could probably sublet it. And so I think people feel a lot more comfortable. We actually had a landlord reach out to us on Wednesday saying, I have 1,000 units. They're mostly walk-ups. They're on the Upper West Side. We pay OP for almost all of them. I'm worried about being able to lease them. And also we love the idea so much, is there an opportunity to invest? And so I don't want to jump the gun. I know we may get to that topic later. But it's interesting because we're seeing that our landlords, who are really our primary clients, because they're the ones that are footing the bill, they're seeing that this is saving them money, and they're seeing this is an opportunity, not just for the COVID world, but really the post-COVID world, because all of these tools, the virtual tours, the video uploads, the 3D showings, all of these things are going to allow, including our search to close. So we're letting people sign leases, transfer funds, get their background checks, all virtually. You don't really need that IRL touch when renting an apartment.
Okay, so before we get to the post-COVID world, I want to ask Jared, I want to ask all of you about some of the challenges of operating in the COVID world, because, even though a digital solution is great, it's saving us. We're having this call. Zoom is incredible, but there's obviously constraints. Jared, have you had to kind of work around that with deals if people do want to move out of their homes?
Yeah, I mean, it's anywhere from you have to worry about in a municipality if the court system is shut down, if we're doing, title transfer, to if two people are in a title, someone's going to use it as an excuse not to, I don't want to see that person. I'm in isolation right now. So things you wouldn't think of and things you would think of. So with every opportunity, there's always a challenge as well. But for us, the opportunities definitely are far outweighing the challenges. But the obvious things are obviously, and the guys that better can attest to it, like appraisals are, with the surge in demand, there's going to be a lot of capacity issues with appraisers. So you got to maybe get drive-by appraisals. Inspectors, obviously people don't want people in their house. And then you have dynamics where people have to physically be there. That's a problem. Now, Congress is supposedly passing an act to allow nationally e-signatures, which is something that people have been pushing a while. So this is a great catalyst for that as well, too.
So at this point, do you think those challenges, how have those challenges, like what's the net effect on the deal flow then?
For the amount of obstacles we have, there's more demand to offset that. And it's interesting because if you're operating, we don't do a lot in New York, but if you're in New York, everything's shut down. But some areas, say in Texas, they really haven't felt the effects as much, and people are still walking around and moving around. So the court systems are open there. So it depends on each area. But net, it's been much more beneficial to us than been an obstacle.
Viral, what about you? Has the court system has that been the biggest impediment, or?
It's been that was one of the first things that we thought would be a challenge. I think thankfully the local, state, and federal governments have moved quickly to make sure it's not an issue. So we so far haven't seen any deals break or have to get delayed because county courthouses are closed or you can't record mortgages, etc. So far so good, and I think there's a national a rollout that's going to happen that makes sure that that's not an impediment to closing. There's a few other ones which I think Jared highlighted as well, which are appraisers. We've seen more acceptance of drive-by appraisals, in some instances waiving appraisals, depending on the loan circumstances. And we're also working with industry participants to bring technology into the appraisal process. Like if you have an iPhone, use that to take pictures of the interior, send that to the appraiser and let them appraise a home remotely. So I think we can get, at the end of the day, people want certainty on what they're buying or lending against, etc. We can still get that certainty virtually. We just have to move quickly to embrace technology. And I think that's happening. As Jared mentioned, some of this is a catalyst. I do think that this unprecedented and difficult time will be a catalyst for the industry to embrace tech, and we are seeing it. So that's on the appraisal side. Notary side is very interesting as well. We're seeing more widespread acceptance of remote notarization. So no longer requiring the notary to come into your house, but to do like a webcam. Exactly. So we're working pretty quickly to allow that option for consumers as well. And I think this is going to be one of the longer lasting changes that we see in the industry. Like when we see that it is possible to transact virtually and we can save time and money and it's convenient, this doesn't need to be a temporary thing. I think it's the beginning of some good changes that'll be good for the industry and the consumer.
I don't disagree with you. The idea of a drive-by appraisal makes me a little nervous. I mean, it seems like there's a lot that could be missed. But let's talk for a minute about the viability of some of these technologies kind of replacing the status quo. I mean, the other day, Barbara Corcoran gave an interview and she said that she didn't think people would buy and sell homes just completely virtually. And I know that there's been a lot of speculation about that. So where do you all stand on how virtual this can really be?
I think it really depends. I mean, even before the COVID outbreak, we've seen lots of consumers buy investment properties without visiting them in person. And that's really the primary part of the market. We saw consumers buy homes without, physically stepping into them. As for families who are looking to buy the home, that they're going to, that their kids are going to grow up in, remains to be seen. Look, I think we've always seen skepticism with respect to technology. People thought you wouldn't put in your credit card number on when you're buying things on Amazon, right? Or buying groceries on Amazon. So I think there's always
down and
there's always been skepticism, and I don't think anyone thinks that every single home will be bought virtually, sight unseen. But I do think that there's more opportunity here than people think. Certainly more than zero. And I think it might be one permanent change might be, instead of the default being I must go see every single house in person, let me do the initial filtering virtually. And only when I see okay, here are the 2 or 3 that I really want to then set up the appointments to visit those in person, that might be a broader change that we see.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo 2 points that Viral made, the one that he just made and the one that he made in the previous answer. I think that in terms of people buying a home sight unseen, I know that makes me wildly uncomfortable. In terms of investment property, I could see it being different, but if it's where you're going to raise your kids, you want to see what do the houses next door look like? What do the streets look like? I want to drive the neighborhood. It's really quite different. I mentioned before about people with an apartment. It's quite different because you don't have that long-term commitment. So I think it's much more likely for people to feel comfortable signing up to a year lease rather than making the largest purchase they'll make in their life. And I think to Viral's other point that the step one is no longer going to be reaching out to the owner or the agent to go see it in person. Step one is give me the layout. I want to see a virtual tour. I want to see a 3D tour. I want to have this so I don't waste my time. And we're seeing that on Doorkee, where we're encouraging departing tenants, and it's quite easy for them to take a quick video of their apartment, some of the amenities, takes a couple of minutes. And since the departing tenant is doing it, you're getting a much more accurate picture of what the apartment looks like. The thing that I hated most when I was looking at apartments is I'd be like, holy shit, sorry, you can curse on here, right? That's fine. I'm sorry. All right. So I was like, this apartment's great. And it's well, under my budget. Of course, this is going to get snapped up in no time. And then I show up and I realize whoever took the pictures, took pictures with a fisheye lens or really sort of made it so that the apartment looked a lot better than it was. And so I think we're going to see more authenticity in the advertising, especially when you're seeing the peer-to-peer marketplace. And it's just going to save everyone's time. If you show up to an apartment and it's not what it looked like, you're not going to just take it because you showed up to it. And so in terms of the longevity of this, I think that the virtual options in terms of touring are going to be the first step. For rentals, they may be the only step. And I think the things that come after it, such as lease signing, background checks, fund transfer, all of that happening on one platform like we have at Doorkee, or all of it happening virtually. We spoke to a lot of landlords who said, I require wet signatures on everything, or I want to meet the person individually. And that may work for some of the smaller mom and pop landlords, but the reality of it is that makes it a lot more difficult. And I think Jared mentioned this before, this is the catalyst that's going to kind of, kick all of the landlords and the property managers in the behind to realize that business as usual can no longer continue because all of their peers are taking this as an opportunity to make their processes a lot more efficient and also a lot more user-friendly. A lot of this tech adoption, people thought, oh, that's a nice to have. It's not going to be a nice to have anymore. It's going to be a must-have just to stay competitive.
So John, in your scenario, do you see residential brokers fitting into that equation?
So I think that there's always going to be a space for rental brokers, but I think that a lot of the value that's provided can be provided by a combination of automating online tools and using the departing tenant to provide access. Now, for the really high-end apartments that are bespoke or that are going to require a white glove touch, there are always going to be brokers for that. Or if money isn't an object and you don't have time and you'd rather outsource it, also an opportunity. But the same way that we've seen stockbrokers evolve from that's the only way you can buy a stock on the stock exchange to I just put $500 into a Charles Schwab account or a Robinhood account. When actually, shout out to the Real Deal's Future City, when I was on the panel down there, I asked the question of everybody in the room, who here used a travel agent? crickets. Nobody uses travel agents anymore. I mean, there is a very, very small sect at the high end. And I do believe that's where a lot of the brokers will start gravitating to. But I think that the time in the multifamily space, especially in the mid-range, it's just too expensive to have that sort of value delivered at that price point.
Jared, what do you think in terms of some of these digital solutions that are really useful right now? What do you think about the viability and sustainability of it going forward?
Yeah, I think it's going to accelerate. You have a population of like my parents' age that are used to doing something one way, and my son and my daughter are used to a different way. And as that population, like my parents' ages out, you're going to have younger people that are so comfortable doing things virtually, and they're not going to know anything better. It's the same thing as, the analogy with the newspaper. My parents are used to reading a newspaper. My son's not going to know that feeling of holding a newspaper. They're going to think it's weird. So I think it's a little bit of time's going to have to go by, but also I think that as these technologies evolve with the age of the people, that you're going to see an acceleration of it. And I think Barbara Corcoran's frankly wrong too.
Right. Actually, it's interesting that you bring up the generational shift, because one thing that I've been curious about is the accessibility of home ownership in general. I mean, even before this pandemic, there were all sorts of statistics about millennials not being able to afford down payments or homes. And I'm curious if that's a factor, I guess, both for you, Jared and Viral. Like, what do you think of that? Just like even before COVID, the accessibility of home ownership.
I mean, you have the world's upside down pre-corona crisis, where people at retirement are supposed to be spending the money that they've saved their entire life. And one of the crises that's going on in the housing market is you have a third of the country with no mortgage, and you have a lot of people, 25% of the country can't access the equity in their home. And then you have the younger generation where they're riding so much debt. And it's supposed to be the opposite way, where you're supposed to be spending when you're older and saving when you're younger. And that dynamic has created a lack of ability for people to buy homes. But one of the benefits of the prices going down in home ownership is it's going to be more affordable for people to buy homes now, and you're going to see a shift probably. So I think it's going to change, and I think you have a lot of homes that are now become single family rentals, and that's taken some supply out of the market. But people may have a different opinion.
Yeah, no, I echo that. I mean, I think that there have been some structural issues that have been difficult. Not enough housing supply, people staying in homes longer, the lack of starter homes, and on the consumer side for millennials, student debt, and a less robust kind of employment picture and wage growth than prior generations had. Having said that, a lot of our home buyers, the majority, are actually millennials. So we do see that millennials want to buy homes and are buying homes, but I think we need to help them and educate them that they actually can. There are consumers out there who think that they need to wait 10 years until they have 20% down, and they're not even going to think about buying a home. And in the meantime, they're losing all this home price appreciation and building equity. So I think the onus is on us in the industry as well. Like, let's educate these consumers. You can put 10% down, as an example, in a responsible way and achieve that dream of home ownership. That's what we try to help our consumers with as well.
Is there anything in the stimulus bill that you think would help homeowners or potential homeowners, maybe not today? Today, I think we're all, trying to make it till tomorrow, but just in general, in terms of economic recovery.
Yeah, I think there's a few, both direct and indirect. So directly via the government, they have announced these forbearance programs. So for current homeowners who are facing difficulty, they've been laid off or furloughed and can't make their mortgage payments, there are forbearance programs where, due to the circumstances, they can delay and defer making payments on the mortgage. Indirectly, due to how much rates have come down, current homeowners can refinance. So if you bought a home about a year and a half ago and you paid a 4.5% rate, you could refinance today into a 3.5% rate, and you'll save hundreds of dollars a month. And that, over 10 years, $30,000 or more.
I have a quick question though about that. Just because I may or may not be a homeowner and may or may not have been hit with like a backlog at the banks, like just overwhelming demand for that. Have you dealt with that?
We have, yeah. And one of the benefits that we can provide consumers is they don't need to talk to somebody on the phone or wait for someone to pick up the phone to understand, do I qualify and how much can I save? So we've put all of this online. So within 3 minutes, you can find out whether you're pre-approved. And very soon after that, figure out how much you can save in monthly payments. So there's no gatekeeper versus kind of the big banks. Yeah.
John, is there anything in the stimulus bill that you think would either impact your business or the potential benefit? I mean, I guess just the specific checks to tenants, right?
I mean, I think checks to tenants would be, I think overall from a macroeconomic viewpoint, I'm very Keynesian when it comes to my economic viewpoint. I mean, I think putting money in the hands of individuals and allowing them to spend it is, if you talk about, I won't get too deep into the weeds, but the marginal propensity to spend for individuals at the lower economic rungs, and I'm not just saying lower economic, I'm saying like outside of let's call it the top 25%, they're just going to spend that money on their rent. They're going to spend it on groceries. They're going to spend it on necessities, which keep the economy going. Actually, my old neighborhood, I grew up in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and a gentleman by that name is the Salerno family. He actually just got a write-up in the Times. I believe he has a couple hundred apartments, and he waived rent for all of April for them because he realized that he could afford it and that almost all of his tenants couldn't. I actually spoke to Nate Smoyer this morning from avail.com. He's also got an awesome podcast, and he did some research and he found out that 40% of renters were unsure that they'd be able to make their April rent. And so, they talk about the knock-on effects of those of the tenants not being able to afford it, right? Because there's actually a highly segmented market. You think of a landlord and you may think of these big conglomerates, and sure, there are really big landlords that own thousands and thousands of units, but the reality is there's a very long tail, and most of these units are owned by mom and pops, and they need that money in order to be able to afford their mortgage payment, in order to put money on food on their own table. And so by giving money directly to the renters, they're able to afford their rent, and the homeowners are able to afford their mortgage, and they don't need to, and then the insurance companies don't have to pay out insane payments for missed payments. And that's also part of the reason why we're trying to help landlords speed up their onboarding with Doorkee, because if you're a departing tenant, right, you can earn on average about $1,000 just by cooperating with your landlord through a rent refund. I mean, how nice would that be right now to have an additional $1,000 in your pocket by not really doing anything different than you would be doing normally?
Totally. So on the topic of access to capital, I want to shift a little bit. All of you are in the business of having raised capital, talking to investors. The past few weeks, I imagine a lot of you have been talking to your investors and having conversations with them. And I'm curious if you can give us a little bit of a window into that, into what those conversations have been like.
So I'm happy to jump in here. We're in a unique position. We're not as far along as Jared or Grell's company are. So we raised our seed round. We closed it in July of last year. And then we had a number of our existing investors or new landlords that were using our product saying, hey, I'd like to invest. So about 3 months ago, we started exploring a convertible note, because the best advice I had gotten from other founders are, if you can get money at your price point, take the damn money. And so Jordan, my co-founder, and I decided that we would open up a convertible note, and it's almost exclusively landlords and VC firms who are in the space. And we actually just closed on about 2/3 of the convertible note already. And so we were a little bit worried, to be frank, with all of this happening in the macroeconomic environment, that people were going to get cold feet. And so when we reached out to our investors who had committed, we said, like, look, we understand this macro environment. If we need to push this off or change things, like, let us know. And actually what they said to us is that they believe that a small sect of companies that can allow virtual showings, that can allow end-to-end processes to take place without human interaction is not only going to see a jump now, but is going to see that sustainable jump as the rest of the people in the industry realize that this is not the future, this is the now. And so these changes were already happening. And this is the COVID just kind of sped it up. And so we've been very lucky to be able to raise money in this environment. And like I said, another landlord just reached out just this week, cold emailing us being like, hey, I'd love to use you guys and use you guys to invest because we provide opportunities for our clients to make or save money. Jared said that, he started his company that was going to be recession proof. It was meant for a recession. And so we just got off an unprecedented 12-year bull run. It was going to come to an end sometime soon. And so for a company like Doorkee, we pitch landlords like, look, you're not going to be able to raise rent indefinitely, right? You're going to have to start saving money to the bottom line pretty soon. And the way to do that is to become more efficient by cutting your fees, cutting your vacancy, cutting your marketing spend, while at the same time providing a better experience to tenants. And so Doorkee actually has found that more people want to sign up because when you're not able to get more money on the top of the line, you need to make sure that you're cutting to save money for the bottom line.
Viral, what about you? In terms of access to capital and just the burn rate, is it something that you're going to have to make some hard decisions about?
Well, I think broadly speaking, a lot of people are approaching this uncertain time and volatile time with uncertainty themselves. And so I do think, broadly speaking, it is more difficult to get access to capital as a general rule. But, I think as John was highlighting, we have seen a few companies that were designed either to be recession-proof, as Jared was saying, or with a tech-first mentality. I think those companies are continuing to get funded. And, we saw a couple announced yesterday, a couple of announced last week. So for those companies that were focused on automation or virtual productivity, et cetera, those companies are continuing to get funded. We, prior to COVID, we were in the middle of a fundraise as well. And, we're nothing has changed for us. We're continuing to kind of push that along.
Got it. There was a prominent investor who recently went on the record as saying that he was advising his companies to just expect little to no revenue over this next 6 months. Jared, or what are you thinking? How are you preparing for the next few months, for the next 2 quarters?
We're hitting the gas and we're going on offense. We have money way beyond next year, but we want to raise more money because we want to grow. And we have a business where the benefits right now for our business are really mirror what's going on with the COVID crisis. People that can't move and want the benefit of selling without having to move, that's going to become much more relevant with small business owners and other things like that. So we're probably going to make an announcement in the next few weeks about raising more money. We also need balance sheet to buy homes. We're getting amazing reception from there. We have existing investors there. And we view this as a great opportunity for us. It's very easy to get defeated in this market, but there's opportunities everywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
I was joking, but I realized I had muted myself. You don't want to make your announcement right now? Actually, I know that you've raised a combination of equity and debt. How are the debt markets looking at this point? This is for Jared.
The debt markets it's a mixed bag. If people were dealing with firms that can buy things cheaper, they can buy whole loans, and now they can buy bonds at 20 cents in the dollar, they're going to do that. So you're going to see people that are out of the business that were in the business right now. And then you have other people that are going to be looking opportunistically to partner up that we would have not partnered up before this. So it's mixed, but anything that's not backed by the government right now, as far as we know, people that were in the prop tech space, like iBuyers or non-qualified mortgages, or people that do reverse mortgages, like the REITs, they're all shut down right now, and it's terrible. I think it will probably bounce back, but the fix and flip market's dead for now. We're just lucky because we have a just different type of product.
What about the money those companies have raised in order to buy homes? Won't that become a burden for them in terms of, interest payments and whatnot without the ability to sell them? Or
yeah. Yes, I mean, other people on the panel might have a different answer, but yeah, it's going to be a problem. I think it's going to be tough, and the markets are going to have to go down a little bit for people to feel comfortable buying them. Things always have a price, even in this time period.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of the business models here, these business models required a quick turn time, buy a home, fix it up, and sell it quickly. They're going to be sitting on inventory, at least for the foreseeable future. And you raise a good point. They're financing that with debt. And the longer it takes for them to sell these homes, the more of a burden it's going to be. I will say similar, and I echo what Jared was saying about the debt markets. I think it's similar to the equity markets as well. Like there's a flight to quality or a flight to liquidity. Just like you continue to see equity investments in high quality tech-driven companies, you're continuing to see lenders support high-quality tech-driven companies on the debt side as well.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see a continued, actually an accelerated path where we're separating the wheat from the chaff. And there's two sides to that, right? Like a good friend of mine sent me a picture the other day, just to be supportive. It's a tweet. It said like startups founded in the last recession: Uber, Airbnb, Slack, Pinterest, WhatsApp, Square, Venmo. It's not a death knell to companies that have a sound business practice. If you need to dance on the head of a pin, or if you need to walk a tightrope during a recession, then odds are, you may not have managed and I'm not saying for all businesses, not at all. And obviously this is a very unique situation where we've essentially ground the world economy to a halt. I'm talking very narrowly when we're talking about startups where they need to raise massive amounts of money and they only work during historic bull runs. This is sort of, it's not a natural market correction, but these things happen, right? We see these sort of black swan events every decade or so. And so I think that you're going to start seeing, as Viral said, the money run to the places that are prepared for an all-weather environment.
Got it. So we had a few questions from people who are tuning in. They actually have to do a little bit, sort of a connection, but someone wanted to know what the top 5 markets are for each of you. I don't know Jared, do you want to go first?
Sure. Our biggest markets are Texas, Georgia, Florida, Colorado, and North Carolina.
Okay. And is there like a top line? Why are those the markets that?
The first 3 we started there. The other 2, I think the product has resonated better. It's the best answer I can probably give you.
Okay, that works. John, what about you?
For us, sorry, John, go ahead.
No, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, for us, it's we're a national lender, so it's basically where you see the most home buying and home selling activity nationally. So California, Texas, Florida, kind of the tri-state area, East Coast. Basically, the U of the country would make the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
So for Doorkee, I'd say our top 5 are Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, the Bronx, and then Staten Island, because we're only in New York right now. But we've obviously looking to expand. We're going outside of New York next year, and the next 4 markets that we're attacking are Boston, Chicago, San Francisco, and LA. The interesting thing is those 4 markets combined only equal the total addressable market of just New York. That's the sort of that's really high rents. That's really high turnover. That's a great market for millennials who are tech forward. But it's also because there are a ton of renters and there's a ton of density in those spaces. So New York is literally the size of the next 4 largest markets. So if we're able to make some headway in New York, I think that we'll press the gas there, but we're also looking to expand to those other 4 markets as early as 2021.
So one final question is just a little bit of a reflective one. How much of a cultural shift do you think is taking place now versus kind of a short-term solutions that people are looking for? How confident are you that there is a cultural shift taking place? Viral, can you take it first?
Yeah, I think so far I can't imagine a cultural shift not taking place. I mean, we've all had our worlds turned upside down in a matter of days and weeks. It's going to leave an impact. I think one of the things I've seen is more patience and grace and hospitality. We're in New York, and New York is always in a rush and sharp elbows and all that. I've seen in general, even in this era of social distancing, more patience and hospitality. I hope that continues, but too early to tell. But I think for people who grew up in the financial crisis, it changed the way they looked at money, the way they looked at liquidity and properties. And for those who are coming of age now, it's certainly going to impact how risk averse or risk seeking they are, where they want to live. Every single kind of virtual game night I'm doing with friends, right? To keep up the social life, every single virtual game night somebody asks, hey, are you thinking about moving out of New York? Or are you thinking about moving out of San Francisco? So we may very well see the beginnings of a migration out of the most densely packed urban areas. Too early to tell, but certainly we're going to see some changes in our culture, it seems to me.
Jared, what do you think?
Culturally, I think the world is definitely going to be a different place. I think there's going to be some unintended consequences for sure. I mean, people are getting more comfortable working virtually. So you'll see people be more prone to hire remote people to be much more comfortable with that. I think you're going to see people not shake hands as much anymore. I think the world's going to be a different place when there's some fundamental shifts, and there's some things where even the dynamic of going to restaurants now, I think a lot of restaurants have gotten used to the fact that people are going to be able to take out that didn't do takeout before. So, just like we were discussing before about money, and Viral was saying about money and how that's changing. I think people are going to approach how people are interacting with each other differently.
Mm-hmm. John, anything?
Sure. I think that some of these changes are sadly going to be ephemeral. I think that, everyone being a lot slower and kinder, I wish it would continue forever, but I think the humans are too adaptable. And when things go back relatively to normal, some of those positive changes, I think we'll see disappear. However, I think that what we're seeing now, so I'm a millennial, I'm 31 years old. And so when I talk to a lot of landlords, especially from the old guard, there's a very strong reticence to go all virtual. Like they don't like work from home policies. They don't like anything that requires everything to be done online. And so I think that there's a natural skepticism. And I think similarly to, when we had Sandy, the Superstorm Sandy in New York, and all of Financial District was basically closed to people working for months at a time, and they had to go all virtual. I think it sparked two things. I think one, emergency preparedness. There's no such thing as a digital first company. Everybody has to be digital first. You need to have the tools to allow people to transact without meeting in person. You need to give the tools to your employees to be able to work from home in emergencies. I think that Jared's right that while you're not seeing a shift yet to a digitally native population moving into business roles, you are seeing millennials who are used to doing everything online. And so I think there's going to be an opportunity to show the older generations who wield a lot of power in the economy to say, look, there's nothing to fear here. We should be adopting these things. As a matter of fact, Accenture just came out with a study about 2 months ago saying that tech laggards, so people that are not early adopters, are leaving literally billions of dollars on the table. And I think there's going to be a change in the approach. People are not going to be wait and see anymore. They're going to be a lot more proactive. And I think it's going to make their businesses a lot more resilient.
Got it. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. I want to thank the three of you for giving us 45 minutes on your Friday afternoon. For everyone who's watching, if you enjoyed this, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to The Real Deal for other content, high quality content like this. But really, Jared, John, and Viral, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.